Over the last several years, multiple leaders in the free and open source software world were banned and ostracized from the organizations, projects, and companies that they themselves founded and created. This has happened repeatedly over the last 5 to 10 years. And as you look back over each of these stories, and we're talking about Richard Stallman, Linus Torvalds, and several other legends within the open source world, as you look at these stories, a clear pattern emerges. In every single case, the people pushing these leaders of open source out, the people pushing and attacking and ostracizing and doing the banning, are always leftist extremists who are funded by big tech. Every single time. Without exception. Without exception. I'm just going to walk you through this real quick because it's insane. Bruce Perens, for example. Some of you may know Bruce Perens. He was big in the Debian project in the early days. He's the guy who wrote the original open source definition. He co-founded the open source initiative. He was the inventor and creator and developer of BusyBox. I mean, this guy's a legend. So he co-founded the open source initiative. He then, some years later, applied to be a member of the open source initiative and was rejected. Repeat that again because it's insane. The guy who wrote the definition of open source software, the open source definition, right? And the guy who created the open source initiative, which is the steward of the open source definition, was now not allowed to be a member, just a random member, not a person in power, not a director, not a board member, just a member, an average run-of-the-mill member that they let anyone be of the open source initiative. And who was making that decision? Well, members of the open source initiative who were in all cases at that time extreme leftist extremists, and they were funded by companies like Microsoft and other big tech firms. The open source initiative is a fun example because they also completely banned their other co-founder, Eich S. Raymond. You may know Eich S. Raymond as the author of The Cathedral and the Bazaar, one of the kind of early works on open source software. It was originally an article, and it turned into a full-on book. He is the co-founder of the open source initiative, and he's a developer of just a huge number of Unixy tools and games and the whatnot. He's a legend. He's been banned not just from being a member of the open source initiative, which they don't allow anymore, but he can't even talk on their email lists. He is banned completely from even communicating with the open source initiative. And he founded it. And he's out. And again, the people that were making this decision were leftist extremists. Then there's Richard Stallman. Richard Stallman, famously, is the founder of the Free Software Foundation, founder of the GNU project. He's the guy who created the GNU GPL, which is the basis of the vast majority of free software out there, which is the core software license. I mean, this guy is more closely associated with free software than any other person on earth. There have been several campaigns over the last many years to completely rid Richard Stallman of any position of authority in the organizations he founded, the Free Software Foundation and the GNU Project. These campaigns are continually ongoing, and they've been successful. He was forced out of the Free Software Foundation entirely. When the dust settled, the Free Software Foundation allowed him to come back, but not in a significant leadership role. He's no longer the top dog, the big cheese, the head enchilada of the Free Software Foundation. And people continue to regularly attack him. Constantly. Seems like every couple of months there's another round of attacks, petitions being put out there, hit piece articles and the like. And in every case, all cases, without exception, the attempts to remove him from power, the serious attempts, are all leftist extremists who have significant ties to big tech corporations once again. And the crazy thing there is Richard Stallman is he himself a very leftist man politically. But leftist extremists with ties to big tech are constantly trying to remove Richard Stallman from power, and they've been successful at it. Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux and Git, but the creator of Linux, right? It seems like he would be untouchable with how popular Linux is. Well, there have been campaigns, a steady stream of constant campaigns to force Linus Torvalds out of Linux and out of the Linux Foundation entirely. Those got so intense that it forced Linus to take a temporary leave of absence from Linux in order to I don't know, work on himself to make himself a better leftist. I don't know. He eventually came back and became part of Linux again, but these campaigns to remove him continue constantly. They are seemingly never ending, and they have been somewhat successful. It's crazy. There's Brendan Eich. Brendan Eich is an absolute legend. Created the JavaScript programming language, co-founded Mozilla, right? Back when Mozilla was worth something. Is now the CEO of Brave. Huge person in the web development world, in the open source world, etc. He was forced out of Mozilla, where he was the CEO, because he had the wrong political views. And who was really causing him to be essentially forced out? It was people who were leftist extremists. Every single instance here is leftist extremists forcing out people who were essentially legends within open source. And here's the crazy thing about all this. When you really drill down into it, these 5 men represent a wide range of political views, right? I mean, for example, if we've got Brendan Eich and Eric Raymond, who are definitely right of center politically. You've got Linus Torvalds, who has declared himself a communist. You've got Richard Stallman, who is very clear that he's a socialist. I mean, these guys are all over the map. I mean, it's every it's every part of the political compass. But all of them were attacked, banned, or ostracized by the same group. Leftist extremists backed by big tech. Over and over again, the pattern doesn't change. It's the same group doing the attacking, no matter what the politics are of the target, right? As long as the individual is prominent and in a position of leadership within the open source world, they get attacked. And don't mistake that these are the only examples out there. These are simply high profile examples, because these 5 guys are absolute legends. Like if you were to compile a list of the 5 most important people in the world of open source, I mean, that's a pretty good list of 5 of them right there. Your list might differ a little from mine, but guaranteed, no matter who you put on your list, it's going to include at least 3 of those 5, right? I mean, these are legends, but they aren't the only examples. I mean, if you look out throughout all of the open source projects and foundations, it is just, there's a graveyard of people who were ostracized, banned, kicked out, and attacked by extremist leftists in their organization. Another good example is the founder of NixOS. NixOS is a big Linux project and packaging system. I have no idea what the politics are of the guy who founded it. However, leftist extremists organized within his project wrote him an abdication letter and forced him to sign it. Now, I don't know why he signed it. I don't know what they had on him where they managed to force him to sign it, but they managed to force this guy out of his own project. Right? He created this project. He created NixOS. He ran NixOS, and he was forced out entirely by leftist extremists. I mean, there's so many examples. And another fun example is me. I used to sit on the board of directors of OpenSUSE, one of the oldest Linux projects in the land. They don't even allow me on their mailing list anymore. I'm not allowed to be a member of the project. I can't vote on the project. I can't submit code patches to the project. I can't just sit on their mailing list. I'm not allowed. And the people who made that decision, who decided to ban me and so many others from the project, are leftist extremists. Every single time. It's an over and over and over again pattern. And it's not just that there's so many people who are banning people from open source projects that a large amount of them are leftist extremists. No. I can find not one example, not one, of an open source leader, of a significant open source leader that was forced out, attacked, banned, ostracized, or silenced by right-wing extremists. Hasn't happened. Can't find it. I've been looking because I've been looking for an example. I can't even find, and I'm not kidding about this, I can't find one example where an open source leader was forced out of their project by people who are politically centrist. Joking. No centrists, no people who are mildly right-leaning, no right-wing extremists, not at all. I can't even find a group, a mildly left-leaning group, like someone who's kind of a little left of center that's forced out open source leaders. Haven't found it. It's only extremist leftists. Only leftist extremists are doing this. And it is over and over and over again. And the pattern is undeniable. It is off the charts. And I challenge anyone to prove me wrong on this. And I want to be proven wrong on this. When I start watching for historical trends and I say, okay, what groups are doing what is the reason, what is the motivation behind things, I like to find those reasons for things. I like to find, okay, so it's this group doesn't like that group, or people with this set of technological ideas are being forced out, right? I want to figure out what is the reason for all of this, because the number of open source leaders that have been banned from these organizations that they themselves created is off the charts. But it's always leftist extremists. It's a constant thing. And in 99% of those cases, the leftist extremists also have significant funding or direct ties to big tech companies. So that's a constant thing. But it's not just the big tech companies, though, because if it was just, oh, well, everyone has some ties to big tech. Well, you'd think you'd also be finding some right-wing people or some centrists that are out there on the crusade to ban people and kick out leadership, but it's not happening. Just left-wing extremists. So people need to be on the lookout for this. People need to be aware that this is happening and ongoing. And some of these examples are from a few years back. Some of them are from this last year. Some of them are from a few years before that. It's constant. It's a steady stream of it, and it will continue. I mean, if the past performance is any indicator of future performance, and it usually is, this behavior will continue. More leadership, more legends within the free and open source world, including some of these guys, will be attacked again and again. And I guarantee you, based on past performance, it will 100% of the time, when you look into it, be perpetrated by leftist extremists. Prove me wrong. Thank you to, oops, I'm going to find the right slide to be on here. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers. Go to lunduke.com and click on links. Look at those links. Those are the best links on the internet. These are great links. You'll love those links. Thank you to everyone who helps to make the Lunduke Journal possible. Could not do this without you. We don't take any money from big tech. No influence from big tech. And as far as I know, I'm pretty much the only game in town that does that. I'm the only tech journalist that doesn't take any money from big tech or any tech company or any advertising dollars ever. So that's something. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.